Let's get back to that now. Where were we?
You were saying saturation was hidden, but the hard disk exposed what
well, exactly what if I could carry on with that thought, the shortcomings of the solid state designs, which was this distortion in the dynamic range. Remember, we couldn't measure it yet, but people were hearing it. And when they went to hard disk recording, digital recording came out, biggest single advantage, expanded dynamic range, bigger, wider window to make observations. And they immediately said, oh, it's harsh compared to tape, which was saturating things. And so take away the cotton, polish the glass, clear a window to look at, and we were seeing the distortions that were prominent in solid state microphones and preamps and equalizers and a lot of stuff. We immediately started looking for compressors and de-essers and all kinds of stuff to fix the problem. And a lot of guys ran back and opened up the mic locker and brought out the old tube mics, and golly, they sounded a lot better. Well, what was really happening wasn't that hard disk or digital recording was cold. It was simply showing you the differences and exposing the differences, if you will, of the two mediums. And now we know that's what happened, but we still have a feeling that somehow tubes distort nicely or they're warmer, and these are all dynamic words, but that really has nothing to do with the distortions that they have. It's the distortions that they don't have compared to transistors. And now, of course, tubes are back in the marketplace. If you want a good tube mic, a good microphone, you're reaching for a tube mic. Neumann, Sony, AKG, all these companies have reissued tube mics, much like Fender reissued tube guitar amps. Guitar players knew right away the difference between a tube guitar amp and a solid-state guitar amp, and they called it things like warmth. They called it real. They called it dynamic terms. That musicians have much better ears. And again, going back to my friend's statement, there's a lot of things that matter that we can't measure. Well, we weren't ready to measure what was going on, and we made conclusions that were wrong. Digital recording isn't cold or harsh. It's absolutely neutral. And we know that now. And of course, the more ways you slice it, the higher resolution, the more neutral it is. But compared to tape, we actually have preamps now that and software that emulate the shortcomings of tape, the saturation of tape. They get that soft sound. It's kind of funny. It's all done in the computer software world today, but we're always kind of looking for that vintage sound. I mean, when we listen to the Beatles or Elvis or any of that, they might have higher noise because tube products definitely have more noise. Although it's not a meaningful measurement in many ways because you're willing to sacrifice a little of that for tone. All the Beatle recordings, which were made on tube mics, all the Elvis, Sinatra, you go on back, and all the great classics that we've heard and love still hold up really well. They sound great because they're all tube-based.
Now, this facility, Aspen's Place, this was the home of Groove Tubes.
Yeah, when I I had a life-changing event, and it really didn't know if I would be around. And pretty much decided I had to reduce stress in my life. I decided I didn't want to really run a company and have 30 or 40 employees and run around the world. And I had an offer to buy the Groove Tubes company, which I accepted, and I went into some treatment. And I'm actually healthy today, but I needed to get rid of stress and go through some medical procedures. And I'm happy to say that it all worked, and I'm good and happy. But it meant divesting myself of stress and run a business sometimes, especially in the state of California, have 30, 40 employees, go to 5 trade shows a year, go to China twice a year, Europe twice a year. It loses its sparkle really quick. And I decided I was going to kind of settle down, and I had a good chance to sell the company before everything crashed in the market, and I did, and I had this building that I'd paid off over the years. I had a very successful company. I didn't have to sell Groove Tubes, but I just chose to. And now I'm a company of one. My business model is me. If I have an engineer that works, he's on contract for the jobs that we do or something like that. I took the building and I rededicated it. I rent out half of the original Groove Tube factory, which is what we're in. And the other half I developed into kind of my bucket list, which is have a place to restore cars in the back, have a place to get back into the music where I started many years ago, and I like the vintage style recording of large format, where the band is hooked up and plays live, and they're well rehearsed. They have good songs, and we can record an album in a couple of days, not months, and we can polish it for weeks afterwards. But the actual raw recording being done like a live recording in a big format room, using all tube gear, every channel, all 32 channels of our input. Our board is 7 feet high and 5 feet wide, and it's all tube preamps, and they directly feed a modern hard disk system, which is Pro Tools 10 right now. Debating if I will upgrade, but it's basically, we don't have a mixing console. We mix in the box. I believe that capturing the sound is pretty much where the thin air becomes a voltage at the microphone or at the guitar pickup, and then amplifying that with tube gear, using tube compressors, tube equalizers, tube preamps, into a hard disk system. You capture a sound that's so big and thick and wet, you don't have to fix anything. You don't need a lot of plugins.
So the virtual mix is pretty much...
I'll be honest with you. A lot of studios, tout their big board, and they're really touting the preamps in the board. And I think my preamps are better than most of those because my preamps are tube-based.
And you have a studio that's ready to go. You've got the ISO boost. You've got amp cabinets, which it's just...
we have an amp closet where we can put closet a couple of tube amps. A guy can be playing live electric right next to a guy playing an acoustic Steinway. We have a studio upright Steinway. Over in this corner, we could have a Leslie going with the Hammond organ, and it can all happen live. And it's like playing in the best designed club ever. You get the feel of the live music. The musicians really enjoy it. Once you get all of that up and running and everybody's listening to it through headphones, they can hear the mix they want to hear. And it's a very creative environment. And I think the biggest thing that we can do to make good music is make a comfortable environment for the musicians. You're going to get the best thing you're going to get if they're comfortable, and whatever that is. And so much of the studio experience, if you've ever been to a big studio and done that get the drum sound for 3 hours, banging a drum and moving things, and now get the bass sound, and okay, we're going to do this track and that track, and then we're going to have you add that track. I mean, it's a tedious, long process that takes a lot of the creativity out of it. It frustrates everybody, including your ears get shot as an engineer listening to drum sounds. So we try to have our drum set. We've done that. It's set up, ready to go. The guy can bring his, but we know exactly in that big room that we designed for drum, where you know exactly what we're going to get in there. So it's a quick setup. It takes us maybe 2 hours to set up a whole band, and everybody's happy and ready to play. And then they play a set a few times, and the album's done. Maybe play each song 3 times. We can go back and add stuff and fix a thing or two, but most of the stuff we record here is recorded live and direct to disc, if you will, hard disk, and mixed in the box. If we need to come out, we come out and maybe add a little tube compression or tube EQ. Pretty much, we don't use a lot of plug-in software stuff, and that comes out sounding very warm and real, like the old recordings were. And that's just something I'm doing, not because it's a great business model, but because I just really like to do it.
It's more efficient. It's quicker.
It's quicker, but it's more musical.
Correct.
It's more musical, and that's the business at the end of the day. It's capital M, small b. Music business with a small b.
Correct.
Music with the capital M, and if that's your focus, and believe me, guys love recording in that environment, and it's rather unusual. Either they have a small home studio where they do it 1 track at a time, or they go into a big studio with a big board, and it's a tedious, long process of getting the bass tracks, getting the best track. I'm going to overlay the rhythm guitar. Okay, we're going to overlay them. And every guy's kind of playing to something that happened days ago or even months ago. It's now transported on the internet. Okay, why don't you lay in this track on that? And you see some live recordings that are on stage, and they look like everybody's having fun, but they sound like crap because they're on stage. Here we're doing that live performance in a room designed to sound good, and we capture something really good, and it's fun. So I just do it because it's fun.